One of the other levers that you say helps us sleep better is a consistent schedule. What if you've got young kids or you got a puppy that's waking you up or your work is inconsistent? Like, how do you create consistent sleep if something is interrupting your ability to do it?
This is such a great question. And there are so many of these, right? Young kids, dogs, work. I would encourage you to look at your weekly schedule and find the time that you can protect for sleep. And that's going to be the time that your biological clock gets used to. And if you can get a little bit more time in the morning, an extra hour, go to bed a little bit earlier, an extra hour, wonderful. But if you can protect, say it's 12 to 6, if you can protect 11 to 5, be diligent about that. And then think about either end of that being kind of things that you could move, but have maybe a time, if you're a young mother listening, for instance, and you're like, look, I'm working, I have kids. How do I follow this? 9 hours? Here's the thing. That is the goal. If you can get there, wonderful. But if you can't, give me 7. Take that first time that you have to be up. You've hit your target wake up time. That should be your alarm for ideally every day of the week. But again, life happens. We'll talk about how to catch up in a moment, but that's your target wake up time. And then count back maybe again, if it's only 6 that you can give me, count back 6. And even if you can't get enough sleep, if you can get consistent sleep, here's the dirty secret. You're going to do much better than someone that's getting enough sleep, but keeping different schedules.
Wait, what? So hold on a second. If I can get less sleep, but consistently, so I'm consistently getting 5 or 6 hours of sleep, I am going to do better than somebody who's getting 8 or 9 hours of sleep, but an inconsistent schedule.
And we are talking about situations where the person is really fundamentally not able to get enough sleep. It's not what I recommend, but if you're a shift worker, if you're a single mom with kids working 2 jobs, and you can't get 8 hours of consistent sleep, if you can get 5 consistently or 6 consistently, I really want to move you towards 6 or 7 for your health, your well-being, your ability to be around for those kids. If it's caregiving, that's one of your challenges, and really putting and being diligent. How many hours can I give myself? Because the closer to 7, the closer to 8, the longer you're going to be around, the better the quality of your heart, your brain, your productivity, your relationships. So many positive things when we can put sleep first. But if you're looking at a schedule that is tough, then yes, consistency is king.
Why is consistency more important than the amount of time you're sleeping?
It comes back to our circadian rhythm. Our body and our brain, we're not built as humans to keep different schedules. It didn't serve us from the standpoint of evolution. It served our ancestors from the standpoint of evolution to know when it would be alert. So then it could say, okay, these animals are up at this time and I can hunt for these animals and forage for these, berries at this time. And then I prepare my meal in the heat of the day. It's kind of, so silly to compare, but kind of helps you understand just how important it is and how we're really built. And it takes a lot of time to change our physiology as a species. And our technology has really outpaced our, kind of biological rhythms, which are all about consistency and keeping our sleep times the same, powering down. These are things that we don't have hacks for.
Well, and what I love is there are things that you can do. And basically it makes sense because if you are a young mom or a shift worker or something's going on with your parents, and so you're in the middle of a period of your life where things are really inconsistent, that creates its own level of stress.
Totally.
And so being worried about how much sleep you're going to get or this, that, and the other thing, if you can focus on the 5 or 6 hours that you can pretty much guarantee, that lowers a little bit of stress because now you're focused on what you can control. So it makes a lot of sense.
Totally.
What if your partner has a different schedule or snores like crazy or is just a human furnace and keeping you awake? Do you recommend that you sleep in a different room?
This is such a good question. And if you have a partner, sleep is a social behavior. It's kind of funny to think of it that way, but it really is.
What do you mean by that?
You co-sleep largely if you're in a relationship. So it's a social phenomenon.
It's true.
And so if your partner snores, it's going to probably interrupt the quality of your sleep. And so I would encourage you to think about, again, kind of putting sleep at the center. Granted, I'm biased. This is what I do for a living. But when we can do that and really say critically, how can we optimize for sleep? That will improve your relationship, improve your productivity at work, how you care for your children, so many positive things. And then you have to ask yourself, am I creating lasting memories by, sleeping together with my partner? This term is actually, this is termed as sleep divorce. What I'm about to talk about, sleeping separately.
That's a terrible
which is
name.
so negative.
Can
totally.
we come up with a better name?
I couldn't agree more. I have some friends who are like, look, it's a sleep marriage. It literally is how I'm able to stay in this marriage. And
you
that could be for a number of reasons.
You should just have a sex bed and then a sleep bed. Like we need to make this
Victorian
sexier
era.
in terms of the name of it.
That's what people did in the Victorian era, right? And even earlier than that, and very wealthy individuals.
Well, I thought it was because they had
that.
mistresses, but I thought that's why they were not sleeping together. But
that might have been.
So
a factor.
You recommend that,
and ask yourself as a couple, like, how can we be the best possible couple, that we can be? How can we be the best parents? Succeed in our careers, love each other. And you can do that with good sleep. And if your sleep is interrupting each other's, maybe one's snoring, maybe one keeps a different schedule, one's a shift worker. If you're able to sleep separately, why not? And again, doing away with this term, sleep divorce, I think we should coin sleep marriage instead. Because again, you're just not creating lasting memories when you're sleeping. Sometimes it's nice to cuddle, but you could do that and then slip into your separate bedroom where you're going to get the sleep that will support your personal waking success. And again, allow you to thrive in that relationship. Now, there are some people for whom that will be challenging. Maybe you don't have a guest room that you could, oust your husband or your partner to go to. So if that's the situation for you, think about the ways that you could buffer against that disruption that your partner imposes on your sleep.
Like a pillow wall and earplugs?
A pillow wall, earplugs, and earplugs that block against 60 decibels or higher. So it's just a specific type of earplug, and they have them at the drugstore, every drugstore. White noise, they're widely available. Look into one of these. It creates kind of a background level of noise that then can dampen the impact of intermittent noise, which is often the challenge, right? It's someone getting up to an alarm clock or someone snoring.
I'm going to try that. That's so simple. And hearing it from you makes me know that it's actually going to work. What is a circadian rhythm, Dr. Robbins?
Circadian rhythm refers to systems in the brain and in the body that operate and oscillate in an approximate 24-hour cycle. And that's because we on Earth have a pattern of light and darkness that is 24 hours in duration. And so over hundreds of thousands of years, we've adapted our internal biological mechanisms to that 24-hour day. Sleep is one such rhythm. So there's times during the day where we're awake and then times where we're asleep. Now, the reason this is beneficial is largely evolutionary in nature. So when it's dark out, we can rest and recover. And when it's light out, we can be, operating at our peak, working, commuting, et cetera. And so our physiology has adapted to life on Earth, and our internal systems are governed by this tiny little region of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. We call it the kind of central pacemaker of the circadian rhythm.
That almost made me want to go supercalifragilistic,
yes,
right? Supercalifragilistic. Okay.
If you ever want to impress someone at a cocktail party, that sciencey term is the way to do it.
How do we say it again?
Suprachiasmatic nucleus. Like say that 10 times fast, right?
Suprachiasmatic nucleus.
Yes, bravo. Nailed it. So that's the central pacemaker of this biological clock that we have inside us. And what's so interesting is virtually every part of the body operates in a circadian-like fashion, firing at some times and then relaxing and unwinding at other times, even down to the cellular level, believe it or not. So this system, this internal circuitry, is not meant to make quick changes. Hundreds of years ago, we weren't flying on airplanes all around the world. So understanding that internal system, really, it's like I kind of like to liken it to a big piece of machinery from World War I that just moves slowly. And really, when light changes in our environment, it's maybe a couple seconds a day, not much more, but we fly in airplanes, we hop in airplanes and fly to new time zones and wonder why we just struggle with brain fog, with sleep. And it's because there's a mismatch between our internal biological rhythms and the new pattern of light and darkness and social time. So the clock on the wall, when you land in London, is of course going to be different than your internal biological clock. So understanding these principles can better set us up for success when it comes to our sleep.
So I have a couple questions. This is fascinating, first of all. So thank you for breaking this down. One of the things that you also recommend is getting light in the morning. Why does this matter when it comes to your circadian rhythm and being a better sleeper?
So that tiny brain region that we talked about, where the circadian rhythm is housed, is located right behind the eyeball in the brain. So the brain takes in information about the presence or absence of light through the eye. And then that travels along the optic chiasm to the suprachiasmatic nucleus.
Names here. Optic chiasm, super,
Yes, we're going to sound
whatever
very,
it is.
very
It's very
serious.
sexy field of study, Dr. Robbins.
So light comes in through the eyes and triggers the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or the kind of cognitive home for our circadian rhythm. And then that triggering allows for the secretion of melatonin when we're in the absence of light. So we've all heard that term, and it's all over the shelves of every grocery store, offering you the promise of good night's sleep. But it also is a hormone that's secreted in the brain, in this home of our circadian rhythm, the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And that hormone is secreted when we go out into a dark environment and we see the sunset, and then the process of melatonin secretion begins, and that allows us to then sleep. Then conversely, when we wake up, that internal circuitry gets a signal through the eyes that travels to that brain region that says, oh, all right, melatonin, you're done. It's time to become alert and awake. And going outside to get some natural sunlight in the morning is really vitally important, because that stops the floodgates of melatonin and triggers the brain to say, all right, we're in the awake phase of our circadian rhythm. Only 1 in 3 Americans make healthy, sufficient sleep a priority on a night-to-night basis. Anywhere between 20 and 50% of Americans struggle with one of 2 difficulties, and that's either struggling to fall asleep or maintain sleep.